SuperTalk, Mississippi. This is the Gallo Radio Show on this Thursday morning, the 18th of April. We are glad to be with you and glad to be joined by Scott Waller. He is the President CEO of MEC. Always good to see you. Did you know that 250 years ago today was the midnight ride of Paul Revere?
I heard you mention that just a few minutes ago when I got here. It's pretty amazing, 250 years ago.
250? It was kind of a big deal, too.
But the other thing I heard y'all mention earlier this morning was Newspaper Columnist Day. As a former journalist, it sort of does, hurt your heart a little bit that newspapers do not exist the way they did at one point. But those were the days. We had a, large newsroom and lots of columnists. I had a chance to do that for a little while, and it was, it was when it was about trying to figure out the best way to get the news out accurately as opposed to being the best way to get the news out first. And I think that's the difference we see today.
Obviously here in central Mississippi, and this is certainly not what we came to talk about today, it was the Clarion Ledger, and then maybe you had some smaller papers locally. On the coast, Sun-Times? Sun-Herald. And then, interestingly, in North Mississippi, a lot of people would take the commercial appeal out of Memphis, and then you had the crossover folks who would get both, right? They might grab the commercial appeal and the Clarion Ledger plus local papers. There is some very real nostalgia that's there.
There really is, and it's I came from that. That's been a little over 20 years in that industry before I moved into what I do now. So, good journalism is important, and we still have to try to find it where we can.
Yeah, a little bit more of a challenge. I think we all have to be a little more discerning. So 3 big meetings each year on the calendar. You have Hobnob, you have Capitol Day, and annual meeting. And that's what we're here for today, the 2024 MEC annual meeting. What's the distinction between the 3 events? Do you have kind of an agenda for each of the 3?
We really do. This one is more of we have sessions that we think are informative. We have 2 morning breakout sessions. One is focusing on AI. Everybody talks about AI. Everybody uses AI in some fashion, but really nobody understands AI.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure that we're doing it in a way of how it impacts you and makes you do a better job as a business? We also have a panel this year that's focusing on multi-generational businesses here in Mississippi. Up at the University of Mississippi, their Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship do something every fall called the it's a summit, and the name just completely escaped me, but they're going to come down and bring some information about what that's all about how do you help companies that have been here for a long time continue to thrive and continue to do well. So we're excited about that. And then our plenary session today is going to look at some survey results that we're in the process of doing that really gives us a feel for how people feel about how we're doing as far as the economy goes, what's taking place in the workforce. So the annual meeting has a lot of different elements because we'll finish up with a luncheon that includes entertainment, a keynote. Hobnob is just that. People love to go to Hobnob. We have all of our statewide speak. There are people that come to hear them, and then there are people that come to talk to everybody else.
That's right.
So you get a little bit of that, and then Capitol Day is focusing on what's going to be happening in the session as we leave. So it's more legislative oriented and focused as we go forward. So a little variety in all 3, but I think it's just, we have the ability to convene a lot of our members from all across the state. We try our best to go out to communities and do local meetings, but we understand also that to be successful, we have got to convene our members and talk about what's going on.
We're going to visit with Bill Cork in the 7 o'clock hour and talk about some of the things that are happening with MDA. From your perspective, how healthy is Mississippi economically right now?
Well, I think it's really good on the private sector side of things, and I think that's where you're seeing people make investments. I mean, when you have the work that MDA and our local economic developers across the state have done, particularly over the last 2 years, where you've gotten more than really, if you go back to the aluminum facility in Golden Triangle, the battery plant in Marshall County, and now AWS in Madison County. We're talking, more than, $13-14 billion of capital investment. And a lot of people think, the state's going to pay. No, that's what the company is paying to build their facilities. The state provides some incentives to help with infrastructure and workforce development.
Sure.
But these companies are making that type of investment in our state that sends a signal to the rest of the world that we are doing things very well. And it's taken time to get to that. I mean, it's a never-ending process. But as one person told me when about 2 days before the AWS announcement, his reaction to me is, "We're about to change the way people look at Mississippi," and I think that's true.
Good thing. That outside perception matters. Certainly matters a lot in the business climate. It's interesting that we've been in a spot. We're out of time right now. We'll talk more, I think, coming up at the end of the 7 o'clock hour. But maybe we can pick up on this. It's interesting that when money was cheap, it was being spent like crazy. And then as money has gotten more expensive, the thought was people were going to rein it in, but I'm not entirely sure that that's happened. So we will pick that conversation up coming up at the end of this 7 o'clock hour. Or I might just keep you over. I might just grab you and get you to stay put for a minute. More coming up. The Gallo Radio Show 2024 MEC annual meeting from the Jackson Convention Complex. 7 o'clock hour coming up right after the news. No doubt. Richard Cross in for Paul Gallo this morning. Thanks for being with us as it's got a little bit lighter outside. It felt dark and dreary and clammy outside, but coming to life as we get set for the 2024 MEC annual meeting. Thanks for being with us today. We've got a bunch to get to this hour. We do remind you that this hour of the Gallo Show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services and a custom plan that fits your needs and your budget. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Continuing our conversation with Scott Waller, who is CEO and president of MEC. I think I got the title right.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make you the executive director.
I'm just happy to be here. So.
Just happy to be here, as are we all. I kind of teased it before the break. We were talking about the price of money, and a few years ago, it was really cheap, right? And it was easy to invest because interest rates were low and there's cash all over the place. We are kind of in a different time at a national level, and yet it doesn't seem to have affected development, growth, a lot of big business in Mississippi. Is that a reasonable observation?
I think that is a reasonable observation. I think part of it is that people are understanding the value of Mississippi, because I think that's part of it. When we've looked at, one of the things that we've heard a lot about over the last few years is talent retention and attraction. How do we keep more young professionals in the state? And the bottom line is better jobs will do that. Yeah. And you add to that a really strong, cost of living as it relates to being one of the best places in the nation to live in terms of what it costs to be here. That will drive it, because as you were asking me about the feeling of the economy, how do we feel the economy is, I'm going to tease a little bit. At 11:30 today, we've got a panel that Bill Cork and Courtney Taylor are both on. Bill's your next guest. I think Courtney's coming on later. And we're going to talk about the key things that are driving this economy. But I will tease this up, is that when we did this survey, and it was a statewide survey, it was online, it was not, as I told somebody, sometimes we go out on the road to get results. It's kind of a push poll because I'm telling them what's going on, and then they're voting.
Yeah.
So, no, this is anything but
driving the results.
We did nothing to drive the results of this. All we did was have them take the survey before the meetings, and then we would share them, and then we combined them for today's session. 73% of those that have been surveyed view our economy as headed in the right direction. And I think that's a big, big plus to the work that's taking place at MDA and the fact that what we've seen happen over the last just few months and how we're attracting major companies to our state to set up shop and create jobs. So those are the kinds of things that have people excited. And what you're seeing is, the economic developers, the people in the trenches. Bill's the guy in the trench. I'm the guy on the sideline, cheering them on.
Sure.
What we do at MEC is we try to make sure that we have good regulatory policy, we have good legislative policy that's going to drive our economy. They're the guys that are actually out there making the things happen. So when you see the hard work that they are doing start to come to fruition, and you see it in the way it's come the last few months, you can't help but feel good about where we are, because the economy is in Mississippi is allowing these companies to make this type of investment that was going to pay long-term dividends not only for them but for our state. Mm-hmm. So that's what has me excited about where we are with all this, and I know Bill can shed a whole lot more insight on it as it relates to what they do on a day in and day out basis of trying to attract companies and keep companies. But I really feel good about what's happening.
You bring up something, and forgive me if this is elementary, and maybe if you're listening, you're like, Richard, that's really the dumbest thing you've ever said on this show. You've said some dumb things along the way, but let's just go all the way back to the very beginning, because I feel like we have thrown an MEC. And my guess is that there's some people across Mississippi that go, okay, Mississippi Economic Council. What does that mean? What do they do?
So
you're a membership organization.
We're a membership
right?
organization. What I always tell people, we're not a state agency. Our name sometimes makes people think that we are.
Right.
We're a private, not-for-profit organization. We do not take any state or federal dollars to fund our core mission at MEC. It's all driven by businesses across the state. The members that we have range in size from very, very large companies to companies that have 2 or 3 employees.
Yeah.
I think actually some that only have 1. We have several sole proprietor, members that are part of MEC. We are here to be the voice of business. Our goal is to create a strong business climate, make sure that the things are in place that allow us to be that voice. And it's interesting. I think you mentioned it earlier. It's our 75th anniversary. So 75 years ago, a group of 300 business leaders from all across the state gathered at the Heidelberg Hotel, which if you look right out the window, there's a building there. That's where the Heidelberg Hotel used to sit. And now it's an office building. They gathered there and formed this organization. And hopefully their mission was to make sure that we're creating a strong business climate. 75 years later, here we are, and we're trying to carry on that mission to make sure we're doing it. So we are the State Chamber of Commerce. So when you think about your local chambers,
sure.
We do it at a statewide level, but instead of focusing on some of the smaller things that you see at local chambers, the primary focus is what is our legislative policy? Are there things out there that are going to cause businesses to get to be in a situation to have to spend more money to be in the state?
Right.
So that's making sure we have those things in place is how we help create a strong economy that then Bill Cork and the team at MDA can go out and sell to others to come here and be here.
Good explanation. And I think that's a question that probably makes sense to some people along the way. Okay,
See, when you said I'm about to ask a dumb question, I shouldn't say this, but I started to say, this is in the afternoon. This isn't the sports.
Here we go.
Look,
this is what we do, Lance. This is what we do.
Oh, I'm laughing,
you
buddy.
Know this.
Good job, Waller.
Anybody that knows me knows what a big sports nut I am, and I am a avid listener, so I enjoy the afternoon show. I really do.
It is interesting to get to sit in this chair and to visit with some people. How many people have said, "Oh yeah, listen to you in the afternoon," and kind of going back to the beginning because SuperTalk as Telesouth as a company was reticent for a long time to get into sports. It's pretty polarizing sometimes. But one of the things that we found is that people who listen for news or politics throughout the day, especially during a legislative session, by the time we get to late afternoon, they're ready to go. All right, let's set that aside. We'll go back to that in the morning. Talk to me about the Dogs and the Rebels and the Golden Eagles and whatever else.
Y'all do a tremendous job.
Well, it's a lot of fun.
Really enjoy it.
It is absolutely a lot of fun. So you mentioned AI earlier. It's an acronym. I think most people know that means artificial intelligence, but I'm not sure how many people really understand how much that is driving everything that we do.
No, it's amazing what's out there that you can do now that even just a couple of years ago you couldn't do.
Yeah.
And honestly, you can ask for something and it happens immediately. We've had the little bitty pieces of AI have kind of been developing over the years,
Sure.
being able to search and find something fast on the internet or whatever the case may be, and being able to load it down. But now when you actually have programs that say, write me a speech about.
Yeah.
And you punch a button, and 15 seconds later you've got a 15-minute speech.
In about 1999 or 2000, if there had been a way to go, write me a paper about, hit that button.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because we were talking about journalism earlier.
Yeah.
One of our members, his son is in communication, and he was a freshman in college last year, and his professor told them to go write something using AI, and then print it out, and then you then take that and write it and fact check it and to compare what you can do, because the idea was you can't just do that and trust that it's going to be right.
Sure.
You can use it as a tool. It's a tool that can help you do your job better, but if you rely on it only to do your job, that's when you're going to find yourselves in trouble. So it's developing, and it's going to get better, but it is something that it's not everyone quite understands. That's why we want to have this discussion. We have a discussion at 9:00 on that issue. So,
well, and there are people, I think, also that are scared of AI. It's like, oh, this is going to come take all the jobs away. But no, this is a conversation about integrating artificial intelligence principles into business that make you better, right?
No,
make you more efficient.
It's how to use it the right way. So,
great to see you. Great visiting with you.
We'll catch up in a little while.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Scott Waller, he is the president and CEO of MEC. Coming up next, the executive director of Mississippi Development Authority. We're back after Inspired. Scott Waller joining us one last time, president and CEO of the Mississippi Economic Council annual meeting. You sat down, you're like, it always makes you feel a little bit better when people show up. And they have shown up.
They have shown up. And now they've cleared out. They just were ringing the bell to let everybody know that the first sessions are getting ready to begin here in about 5 minutes. So we're seeing people head up to the session. So we're excited about today. Scott,
I described it with our last guest as it feels like we're putting together a puzzle this morning, right? I mean, we talked with you, and you described yourself as being a cheerleader for business in Mississippi, specifically for MDA. In visiting with Bill, we talked about the attraction of new businesses, but also sustaining existing businesses within the state. And then, with Courtney, we're talking about making sure that the workforce is adequate, whether it's new workers or retraining workers, whatever those needs are. And then we kind of come full circle and talk just a few minutes ago with somebody that is involved in family business, with Monica. All those pieces have to work together for the economic engine to work in Mississippi.
They really do, and I think that's one of the reasons that I'm excited about what we are working on at MEC, the things we're doing. In 2022, we released a report called Securing Mississippi's Futures, a Vision for Economic Growth. It was kind of a carry-on of, for years, we had Blueprint Mississippi, which was, kind of our roadmap of what are the key issues, the goals that we want to meet, what are the recommendations that we can implement to do that. So Securing Mississippi's Future just kind of carried that on with a little bit of a caveat that really workforce development, skills training kind of was at the lead of everything we were seeing when we were doing this development. And you realize this report was released just a few months after the Office of State Workforce Development was created.
Yeah.
So working hand in hand with them has helped us really focus on workforce development, because for Bill to be successful and other economic developers across the state to be successful, we have to have that workforce. And for us to get that workforce, we've got to be a very concentrated effort that is in unison to get that done. So I feel like there's a lot of great things happening in the state right now that are leading us down that path, and just feel like that the leadership that we have from Governor Reeves, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, Speaker White, on down to our agency heads, are focusing on how do we move our state in a positive way, and that's what I'm most excited about as we look forward.
If you had access to your calendar for 2026, you're not retiring for this, you're not avoiding this question.
I'm thinking, that's that right now?
Yeah. So 2 years from now, if you could look at your calendar from 2 years from now, what would the appointments on your calendar look like? What's coming? What does the future look like?
I think the future is that we are seeing a much heavier emphasis on technology.
Okay.
And actually, advanced manufacturing is really focused on technology as well because of what we're doing. So what you're looking at is probably 2 years from now, we're looking at how do we create and adjust a different type of workforce, the workforce of the future. And I think that's where we really have to be thinking okay, we have transitioned from agriculture to the old business and industry effort that was done in the 40s and 50s to get us to where we are today, and so we always got to be thinking ahead. You know, it's that vision is how we have described it with Securing Mississippi's Future. That vision of what do we need to be thinking about? How do we make sure we create the business climate to be successful? How do we make sure we're creating training opportunities, and then how we make sure that we're lining those with what businesses need, so that young professionals in particular is where we've got to kind of start focusing our attention to keep more of them here, get more of them to come, create those opportunities. So I think 2 years from now, when we look back, we're going to go, okay, look at the things that have happened already, and now how do we take that to the next level? But I still think there will still probably be a lot of discussion about workforce. It'll just be a different type of discussion, because I think we're going to see a lot of change over the next 2 years in the types of jobs that are coming to our state.
I don't mean to sound like Pollyanna, so forgive me for that, but it does feel like with a lot of different entities that have to come together, for the most part, everybody's pulling in the same direction.
They really are, and that's how it works. If everybody's working together, we can make something happen. So.
It's been wonderful to be here. Honor for me to get to sit in for Paul and to get to visit with you and other business leaders today. This has been fun.
We greatly appreciate SuperTalk, the relationship we've had with them, particularly as it relates to our major meetings. But, you know, this one's special. As you mentioned earlier, this is our 75th anniversary. I think we've got a great day planned. So if you're not here yet and you're listening, come on down.
Come on.
We got plenty of opportunities. Our plenary session starts at 10:30. Our luncheon starts at 11:45, and it's going to be a fun day.
If you want to learn more about MEC, visit them online at mec.ms. For Scott Waller and all of our guests this morning, and my partner in the studio, Lance, I'm Richard Cross. Paul will be back tomorrow. He'll talk to you at 6 tomorrow morning.